What's up everyone, Clayton here, and today we're going to be here discussing some of the possibilities of the Dark Brotherhood returning in the next Elder Scrolls game. The Dark Brotherhood is kind of a guild, but not technically a guild, who take part in assassinations that they get from the Night Mother. They have a whole set of hierarchy with the speaker, the listener, and things of that nature, and if you guys played the game before, you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. The Dark Brotherhood is kind of a fan favorite, I would say. People care about them more than maybe the Mages Guild or the Fighters Guild or companions in the case of Skyrim. Um, but their kind of involvement in the next game seems a little bit iffy to me. It might not seem iffy to you guys, but to me it does. And the reason is the Skyrim endings that you could have for the Dark Brotherhood. So one ending you could choose, instead of joining the Dark Brotherhood, you can actually destroy them. You can kill everyone in the Dark Brotherhood, you invade their sanctuary with General Morrow and the Pentus Oculatus, and you return to him and say, yo, I killed everyone, the Dark Brotherhood is dead. So, that means, okay, well, one sanctuary is dead, that's not that big of a deal. But it seems like that is the last sanctuary in Tamriel. Or maybe there's hidden ones that we don't know about. But we know at the beginning of the Dark Brotherhood questline, if you actually follow it, that Cicero is coming from the Shaden Hall Sanctuary that was actually destroyed. The Shaden Hall Sanctuary actually had the Night Mother there, and then he transfers her to the Falkreath one that you play through if you actually join the Dark Brotherhood. So we know that maybe this sanctuary is the last one in Tamriel, but we for sure know it's the last one in Skyrim, that there's only one left. And if they lost their foothold in Skyrim, which is bordered to Cyrodiil, where there's been tons of different sanctuaries that are shown through Oblivion, the game, we know if they lost footing in Skyrim, a neighboring nation, maybe they lost footholds all over Tamriel. And we do know like Morrowind never really had a version of Dark Brotherhood because they had the Morag Tong, but that's a whole different other thing. So it seems like the Dark Brotherhood doesn't really have a foothold. And if you actually destroy them, that might be the end of them. But if you join them and do that questline, it ends up that being most of the people dying, and that you only have 3 remaining survivors, or sometimes 4. You would have Nazir, the Red Guard, Babette, the Vampire, and you would also have yourself, the Dragonborn, and possibly Cicero, depending on what you decide to do. They end up moving to the Dawnstar Sanctuary, and because the Falkreath one gets destroyed. They actually start recruiting more people, and there's Dark Brotherhood initiates that you can actually take as followers. But that's kind of it. So what would happen in the next Elder Scrolls game? I mean, it kind of has to depend on what really happens in the next game and where the timeline really fits in. So between Oblivion and Skyrim, it was like 200 years. But that kind of makes sense to me, because Oblivion I felt like was a whole story that was compact. I kind of felt like the story of Oblivion seems like it was like a whole story. It wasn't like waiting for a sequel to finish up the story and wrap it up. It seemed like a pretty complete story. But for Skyrim, there's a lot of questions for me, especially involving the Thalmor. In my opinion, of the next game, Elder Scrolls 6, will have a lot to do with the Thalmor unless they completely blindside us with something else. But it would make sense for me to continue the storyline with the Thalmor, which means maybe the game would take place maybe 5-10 years after the events of Skyrim, instead of the 200-year gap between Oblivion and Skyrim. So if they do this 5 to 10 year gap, it wouldn't really make sense for the Dark Brotherhood to get their footing back. 5 to 10 years to get a whole guild off its feet again. It seemed that like the Thieves Guild was having bad luck for 20 some years, because they said in the Thieves Guild questline that they've had bad luck since Carlisle got kicked out, and that was like 15 years before the Dragonborn gets there. So if it takes that amount of time to get a guild back on their feet, then I don't really see the Dark Brotherhood really getting a footing back. Also, the game won't take place in Skyrim. It'll probably take place in a different nation in Tamriel, which means there's been rumors about Hammerfell, maybe Argonia or Blackmarsh, they're pretty far away from Skyrim. I guess Hammerfell's pretty close. But Skyrim, you'd have to get a footing back in Skyrim and then expand from there. So I don't know if it would really make sense, if all the sanctuaries are destroyed, that they'd gain their footing that fast. So if the game takes place, like 100 years after, no problem. But I don't think it will. I think it'll take place maybe 15 to 20 years. The only reason I could see the Dark Brotherhood being back was with Dragon Breaks, which I did a video about Dragon Breaks a couple weeks ago, where it's split in timelines, where the outcome, no matter what happens in between those split timelines, the outcome's always the same. So that could be the only reason they would bring him back, was that somehow the timeline got split, and then comes back to being the Dark Brotherhood expands, maybe they get a resurgence. But I think the Dark Brotherhood will be back, even though all my logic and what I think, it doesn't really make sense to come back. But I think Bethesda will just make sure they come back because they're a beloved guild. Even bringing the Dark Brotherhood onto ESO, so I think it would make sense that they would bring it back just from like a game company standard. But I feel like to the gamer, it kind of is like, oh, you killed the Dark Brotherhood? Well, they're still alive. That one vampire chick you didn't kill, she recreated the whole Dark Brotherhood. It doesn't really sit right with me, but I really do like the Dark Brotherhood, so I can kind of be okay with it. But yeah, I kind of ranted here a little bit, but this is something I want to talk about and maybe get a discussion in the comments going about if you think the Dark Brotherhood will actually be back in the next Elder Scrolls game, and how they would really bring them back after their pretty much like ultimate demise. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and this is Clayton, signing out.